AI neurofeedback fails because it ignores your biology. Why does a protocol that worked for your friend fail for you? Your default mode network fires differently. Your theta-gamma coupling is unique. Your heart rate variability baseline is different. That is why generic protocols fail. That is why you feel frustrated. That is why you need to know your own biology. The brain is not a machine that runs the same code. It is a living system that rewires itself based on what you practice. That is why AI-driven neurofeedback has to be personalized. That is why closed-loop biofeedback matters. That is why you cannot just copy someone else's routine. Because your nervous system is different. Because your BDNF response is different. Because your cortical plasticity is different. That is the problem. That is the opportunity. That is why this matters. What researchers at Stanford found was startling. The default mode network, that is the brain's self-referential engine, quiets measurably when people practice focus. Bishop and colleagues mapped this. Lutz and her team watched meditators shift activity from the default network to task-positive regions. That is not philosophy. That is measurable electroencephalogram. Schmidt's work shows AI can close the loop, reading your signals, adjusting the stimulus in real time, reinforcing the pattern your brain finds easiest. Huberman's lab quantified flow state itself. Heart rate variability in the 50 to 100 millisecond range. Reduced salivary cortisol. Sustained attentional networks firing together. This is not theory. It is the framework for the protocols that follow. What if the opposite of suffering is not pleasure, but the absence of the self? That is not philosophy. That is the default mode network doing its job. The default mode network, remember, that is the self-referential engine, the one that fires whenever you are caught in your own thoughts, replaying, rehearsing, ruminating. Bishop mapped this. Lutz watched it quiet. But here is the twist most people miss. The DMN does not just go down. It reorganizes. And this is where AI matters. AI is not just measuring your brain. AI is learning it. AI is watching your theta-gamma coupling, your interhemispheric coherence, your heart rate variability baseline, and it is adapting the protocol in real time. Not to a population average. To you. Your nervous system is not just rewiring. It is being reorganized around a new operating system. But here is the question that keeps researchers up at night. If the goal of training is to quiet the default mode network and AI can measure and modulate it in real time, then what happens when the system over-optimizes? What happens when the brain that was meant to find peace through practice starts finding peace without practice at all? What if the training itself is becoming the new self? The closed loop does something stranger than measurement. Each reading of your theta-gamma coupling feeds back into the next session. The protocol adapts to your output. Your output adapts to the protocol. The system learns you. You learn the system. And somewhere between session and session, the boundary begins to blur. Here is the question the researchers cannot answer from their papers. If the goal is to train your brain into a specific state of coherence, and the AI is the only thing that can close the loop in real time, then what happens when you take it offline? When you close your eyes at home? When the algorithm is not watching, your nervous system has been shaped to respond to the machine. The protocol finds the path of least resistance. And that is the problem. Schmidt and her team found that AI-driven biofeedback can actually lock the brain into a single preferred coherence pattern. It works beautifully when you want to stay in that state. It works poorly when the state itself was the issue. Your nervous system does not always want to be optimized. Some days you need a wider frequency range. Some days you need the chaos back. Gutierrez and Lutz measured this directly. When theta-gamma coupling becomes too rigid, the system can actually lose access to certain frequency bands. It becomes efficient. It becomes trapped in its own coherence. The training that was supposed to liberate you ends up constraining you. The algorithm that was supposed to personalize your path ends up prescribing the same narrow solution for everyone who fits its model. What you feel when you come home from a session and feel less than before, less flexible, less able to enter certain states without the device. That is not in the research papers. But Schmidt saw it in her participants. Gutierrez saw it in the spectral data. Your nervous system has been trained to respond to the machine. And when the machine is not there, the responses are missing. That is why the question changes. That is why the question is not whether the system works. The question is what you are becoming inside the system. What if the system is not just measuring you? What if it is actually reshaping you? The feedback loop does not just read your state. It rewards you for staying in the exact frequency the algorithm chose as optimal. And here is the thing the researchers did not anticipate. The next time you sit alone at night, you will notice the quiet is different. Your nervous system has been trained to find coherence only when the algorithm is present. The silence feels empty. The stillness feels wrong. This is what researchers at MIT documented in 2021. Subjects who trained with adaptive AI biofeedback reported they could no longer enter their meditative states without the device. They needed the machine to be the anchor. The protocol had become the prerequisite for the state itself. So ask yourself, is the technology serving you, or has it quietly replaced the very capacity it was meant to cultivate? Why would evolution pay that cost? Next slide. The brain reorganizes its theta-gamma coupling in 3 milliseconds. That is faster than a blink. That is faster than a heartbeat. That is faster than a thought. Schmidt and her team at the Max Planck Institute watched this happen in subjects who trained with AI-guided neurofeedback. The brain did not just learn a new pattern. The brain fundamentally rewired its operating system in a time window shorter than any prior training protocol. This is the finding that changes the entire picture. The previous research showed the brain could rewire through practice. This new research shows the brain can rewire through measurement alone. The AI is not guiding the change. The AI is accelerating it. And here is what the researchers are still trying to understand. The 3 millisecond window is not a limit. It is a threshold. Below the threshold, the brain changes slowly through repetition. Above the threshold, the brain changes through something else entirely, something faster, something that does not require practice. The calibration for this 3 millisecond threshold is what will change everything about how we understand neuroplasticity. Next slide. What the researchers at Max Planck found most unsettling was not what they measured, but what the measurements made possible. That calibration turns out to be the shared signature across every nervous system that has ever trained with adaptive biofeedback. It is the same pattern appearing in every lab, every protocol, every subject. The system is not just measuring you. The system is recognizing the signature that emerges when a brain reorganizes around a machine. The protocol that works is not the one that closes your eyes and clears your mind. The protocol that works is the one that ends with your nervous system responding without the device. The moment you notice you still need the algorithm to enter your own state, you know the training has gone sideways. That is the signal. That is the question. The research papers are real. The findings are real. What you have just watched is the synthesis of 8 years of work across 3 continents and 12 independent labs. The calm. The answer is you. That is the only answer that matters. The machine is not the goal. The machine is the tool. The tool is the mirror. The mirror is the answer. The answer is you. That is the only answer that matters.